This is your spoiler warning for Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 1, Winterfell. If you did not want to know anything about this episode, then please click off now. I don't want to spoil Game of Thrones for you, and surely you don't want me to either. If you are sticking with me, then let's discuss some spoilers. So, we have a brand new intro, which is absolutely gorgeous, and I love how it changes things up from what we've had before. We start at the wall, which naturally has a hole in it now, and we have lots of shots that are really low to the ground, and we also see the Iron Throne, which is excellent. I love the intro, and I love how we open with the scene mirroring the season 1 scene when Robert Baratheon and everyone came from King's Landing up to Winterfell, and the way that it used that same music again, although slightly altered, and that was really good. That's one of the few pieces of music way back from season 1 that I really liked that we haven't heard since, so I'm really glad that we got to hear that. I also love seeing Arya's reaction to people arriving, like Jon, and of course the Hound, and I do love the scene where Arya sneaks up on Jon, and they have a lovely conversation. That was just lovely, and it's so great to see that reunion take place in this episode. And it helped to remind me that Arya is a human being, because she showed a lot more emotion in this one episode than she did last season, and that's just because of kind of where her character's gone. But I love actually seeing Maisie Williams portray that emotion. It was just great for me to see, and I'm really glad that we had that scene. We also see Arya meet back up with the Hound, and their scene is quite entertaining and very appropriate for those two characters. I do quite like seeing them back together. It does make sense how that scene went. And then we of course also see her meet it back up with Gendry, and they have some kind of awkward, almost weirdly flirty dialogue, which I found rather entertaining. I mean, we also see what I found more interesting in the scene. We see that she wants him to make something which looks interesting. I'll be very curious to find out what that is. I can't wait. Hopefully find out next week, maybe the week after. We'll see. But sooner or later, we'll find out what she's having made for her, and I'm very curious about that. I love Arya, by the way. We also see Jon meet Bran, or the Three-Eyed Raven, depending on what you will prefer to call him, which basically goes the same way as when Arya and Sansa met him again. It's quite appropriate for who Bran is now. There's not much to say about that. It's just, it's Bran's not the same. We actually had quite a few character reunions in this one. Sansa and Tyrion, they see each other again, and they're great, of course. Things are different between them, of course. I mean, their relationship to each other is very unique, It's not like any other characters that I can think of on the show. So the way that goes, I mean, it's just interesting to watch how it plays out, because it is so different from all these other characters that we have. But that's interesting to see. And there's some tension in the north because Jon brought back Dany, who he of course bent the knee to, and the Northerners they're not very happy about that, because they pledged allegiance to him. And, I understand the situation. I understand why the Northerners aren't happy that he bent the knee to a Targaryen. And, it all makes sense. But if I'm going to take a stance, I do, while I understand their mindset, I totally support Jon in his decision. It made sense. They have to take out the Night King and the Army of the Dead. And it was the right call. And I'm glad that he made that call. And the scene where Jon and Daenerys ride the two dragons was absolutely wonderful. I was fully expecting Jon to ride a dragon at some point this season, but I did not think it would be this early. But I'm so glad that it was, because that scene was so fantastic to watch. They were just able to really capture how scary it would be to ride a dragon through Jon's reactions and how difficult it is for him. And if I was to describe that scene in a word, I don't know, I would just say it was delightful. Also, since we're talking about Jon and Dany, I do think that they make for a cute couple and that they do have good chemistry. Seeing them on screen together, it is believable for me, and I can see why they got together. So I do like that they do have a level of chemistry with each other. There is a lot that went on in this episode, so I'm really just going to try to touch on as much as possible. So we see Yara get rescued, which makes sense for an episode 1 event, because then whatever they do with Theon or Yara gets set in motion really early into the story, so then they can get to wherever they need to go. So that just makes sense. And it seems that Theon is going to Winterfell, which adds him to the long list of people that will be at Winterfell when the Night King arrives. Also, Yara mentions that the Iron Islands could be placed for the people at Winterfell to fall back upon if they lose Winterfell, so we might see that come up later in the season if they do indeed lose Winterfell, which they very well might. Also, during that scene when they rescue Yara, apparently Rob McElhenney was in that scene, and he got shot in the eye, so that's fun. I love him, and I love It's Always Sunny. But that's that. Also, we see some of Cersei, and she is very much Cersei in this episode. Qyburn delivers the news of the wall, and she says good, which is kind of infuriating, albeit unsurprising for Cersei. And I do wonder how much she knows about the Army of the Dead and the Night King, because obviously last season they brought back one undead to show her, and they explain to her kind of what's going on, but she doesn't fully understand the situation as much as somebody like Jon, who was at Hardhome when the Night King raised all of those people from the dead. So, yeah, I kind of do wonder how much she understands this situation, because it can't be fully. But, like, knowing that she doesn't understand it fully, I do understand how she's acting. And just, knowing Cersei, I understand how she's acting. Also, there's this look on her face after Euron says he's going to impregnate her that I have a hard time deciphering. If you've got some kind of idea as to what that means, let me know in the comments, because I'd love to hear some other thoughts on that. Also, I think it's kind of funny that she wanted elephants. I don't know why. I just find that funny. We also get a scene where Qyburn basically tells Bronn that if he kills Jaime and Tyrion, then he'll be richer than he could imagine, and I imagine that Jaime is going to die at Winterfell when stuff goes down in these next couple of episodes, probably episode 3. Although it does pain me to say that, because I do love Jaime. But if Bronn does end up killing Tyrion with that crossbow, honestly, I can't imagine a more painful way for Tyrion to go out as a viewer than Bronn killing him with that crossbow. He won't necessarily die like that, but it is a legitimate possibility, and if that happens, it's going to hurt. So we see a scene where Sam learns about his father and brother being burned alive, which is absolutely heartbreaking to see, and John Bradley is really good in that scene. This, of course, leads to Jon finally learning the truth about where he comes from, and the fact that he's the true heir to the Iron Throne, and that his name is Aegon Targaryen, and that scene was excellent. I loved watching that, and seeing Kit Harington's reactions to the information that he was getting. It was really good to watch. I loved that, and I can't wait to see what Jon does with that information. I do have a couple of questions about why Jon's the true heir, but I feel like we're going to get into that kind of stuff in future episodes, so I'm not going to bring that stuff up now. Also, we see that Tormund, Beric Dondarrion, and Dolorous Edd, who are all still alive, encounter the Umber Kid, who was obviously going to die as soon as he showed up at the beginning of the episode. I mean, because Eastwatch, the Umber's place was right by Eastwatch, so that had to be the next step, was them, getting killed. It just made sense. But anyway, I do love Tormund's line where he says, "I've got blue eyes." Or, sorry, I've always had blue eyes. That was great. And then, of course, they're going to head to Winterfell, and that's going to lead to some good stuff. I'm really excited for what's coming next. We, of course, end off with a brilliant scene containing absolutely no dialogue, in which Jaime arrives at Winterfell, and he sees Bran, the boy that he pushed from that tower at the end of the first episode. And just the look on these two characters' faces really shows us how both of them are such completely different people to where they were at the beginning of the show. It's really crazy how far we've come, and I think it's perfect to end the first episode of the last season by mirroring it with the first episode of the first season, ending with a shot of Bran's much less surprised face. Overall, I thought this episode was great. Every single scene had something in it that was great to watch, and there was just so much to this one, and even though it was only 54 minutes including credits, and I really feel that Game of Thrones managed to give us a great episode of television just on the merits of these conversations and these characters and these moments that they have with each other. It's not like there were any big action pieces in this one or anything. It was just great storytelling, and I loved that. So I thought this was a great premiere, and it's currently probably my second favorite Game of Thrones premiere behind the season 4 one. And this episode, it genuinely welcomed us back into the show's 8th and final season with a delightful first episode, and I'm going to give Winterfell a rating of 9.25 out of 10. I also made some predictions on poolofdragons.com, and I'm not going to get into my specific predictions, but I'll just leave some screenshots of who I pegged as alive and dead on screen now so that you can see who I think will and won't make it, although keep in mind that I'm unsure about a lot of these, as you would expect. So guys, that next time trailer, that got me super excited for Sunday, and I can't wait to talk about Game of Thrones again. I won't waste time bringing up everything that happened in that next time trailer now, because I just don't want to waste time on it. But needless to say, I am super eager for next week, and I can't wait to see everything with Jamie. That excites me a lot, plus, everything else. Also, for people following my channel thus far, I want you to know that these Game of Thrones reviews are in no way replacing Doctor Who videos. I'm still planning to do one Doctor Who video a week, and these reviews are just a bonus because I love Game of Thrones, and I need to talk about it. And I will say, though, I definitely went a little overboard with the predictions that I made for the whites. I'm sure we won't get that many people turning into whites, but I just figured go big or go home. So, yeah, at the end of the season, I'll touch back on these predictions. So, no deaths so far, but, we'll see where it goes. Obviously, people are going to die, and, I mean, we don't know how many at this point. It's kind of scary. So yeah, that'll do it for now, folks. I hope to see you next week, either for my episode 2 review at some point next week, or for my Doctor Who Series 11 review on Sunday, where I will discuss whether or not I believe that Season 11 of Doctor Who succeeded. But for now, thank you for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.